FSU. If you would please go ahead and you could sign in and then get yourself something to eat. Just a couple housekeeping things before we do get started. We're going to end today at 1:20. I know we got some folks here that are going to be catching a bus, so we're going to end at 1:20. A lot of times this will go to 1:30, but just making sure everybody's aware, we'll stop at 1:20. And without further ado, we're going to get started. Just a second here. We can go ahead and put the next slide up, and there we go. Perfect. All right, well, welcome to a Lunch and Learn. My name is Brian Baber, and I have the pleasure of being the host here and getting to interview some friends and pillars of our community, the Cramers. We have the second and third generation dealers from Bill Cramer, and we are excited to hear their story. I can assure you this is going to be a treat for you all. And so without further ado, we're going to get started. Let's just welcome our guest here today. Thank you so much for coming. You all have a mic? So we all got our mics teed up, and what we're going to do is we're going to rewind the tape a little bit. And I know that some of the history of Bill Cramer Chevrolet, GMC, Buick, Cadillac, started with another name, right?
Tommy Thomas Chevrolet.
Is that one?
Testing.
There we go.
Yeah, Tommy Thomas Chevrolet since 1965.
1965. So we're celebrating a milestone this year, right?
60 years.
60 years. 60 years being in business in our community here. So tell us a little bit about some of the early years, and then we're gonna come into the forefront, okay?
Well, it depends on how early you want to go.
Well, I know that Tommy Thomas was your father-in-law, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and he came to Panama City in 1965.
Just one second. Is this mic? Are you?
Can you hear me?
Test.
How about this?
That's better.
Is that better?
That's better. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Tommy Thomas came here in 1965, and he replaced a dealer, Chevrolet dealer, and it was just Chevrolet at the time, who had been killed in an automobile accident right out here by the railroad tracks. A terrible accident. And Mr. Thomas had several dealerships. He had his Chevrolet dealership in Aniana, Alabama, a small town. And he had been promised that if he'd take that dealership over and it was failing and improve it, make it profitable, that General Motors would consider him for the next what they considered to be good opportunity. And there's some backstory to that, how he got to Aniana, but the short story is that because of that accident, General Motors offered this, what they call point, in Panama City. And, that's how we got started here. It's a small town to a big opportunity.
Yeah. Yes. 60. Think about that. Just 60 years ago, and a tragic way to enter the market, right? But
yes.
But I know that looking back over the years, the imprint that your family has had on our community, it's wide. It is wide, and we are thankful that you guys are part of it. So, take us a little bit more into the future. How did you get involved?
Now that is a long story, but I'll shorten it. I had no intention of ever being in the automobile business. It wasn't on my horizon. It was below my radar. Whatever metaphor you want to use, it was as far away of a possibility as I could ever imagine. My degree in college was in mathematics, and that's what I loved, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go on and teach mathematics. And my father was a lawyer, and he's got a life story, as does Mr. Thomas. But I'm one generation away from someone who started from nothing and became a United States congressman. And they're two generations away from Tommy Thomas, who started with nothing and became not only the General Motors Chevrolet dealership here, owners in several dealerships, but a real political power in the state of Florida. I wanted to be a mathematician. I wanted to teach. I wanted to teach at the collegiate level. And my senior year, the first semester of my senior year, my father said, I'd really like for you to take the LSAT, the LSAT test, because he was a lawyer in Washington, D.C., and he wanted me to go into practice with him. And I said, Dad, I don't want to do that. And he said, well, what's it going to hurt? So I said, okay, I'll do it. And I really wasn't worried about it. In other words, I didn't study for it. I wasn't concerned about it because it wasn't something I really thought was in my future. But I had worked hard in college and did well. And I ended up doing pretty well in the LSAT. And I decided I'd apply to 3 law schools. And one of those was Harvard Law School. And I got into Harvard Law School. So then I've got a choice to make. You know, one of those things in life that happens that you don't expect. My passion is mathematics. I'd really like to go teach it, but how do you turn down an opportunity like that? So I thought, well, that's 3 years out of my life. I'm pretty young at the time. And I'm not going to be taking a step back. And that's another theme that will recur in our story is that you always try to give yourself the most opportunity. Be prepared for whatever might come your way because you never know what it will be. So this was a 90-degree turn for me, a right angle or left, whichever way you want to go. But I decided I'd go to law school. It was a lot of hard work, a lot different from my experience in college, where if you're doing math problems, you got a set of problems. You work them through till you get the answer, and you're done. But you know you got it right, or you got it wrong, one way or the other. Law is not like that. There's always 2 sides to an argument, or there wouldn't be attorneys. Each one of them is going to pick their side of that argument and make their best case. So it's kind of a change of paradigm for me in terms of how I studied, and it was reams of documents to read, cases, basically, and then have to be able to regurgitate them and analyze them and be questioned about them. I did that. I got through that and went on after I graduated to work for a federal court of appeal judge, U.S. Court of Appeals in Jacksonville. And I enjoyed that quite a bit. That was more academic. It was less rote memorization and that kind of thing. And we had issues that were novel because the ones that were easy to decide were issued, easy, what they call per curiam memoranda, which said either we affirm or we reverse, the district court. And I enjoyed that. And then as I was about to leave that and go to work for a law firm in Jacksonville, Tommy came to town and said that his son Bill was going to get his own dealership in Pensacola, and he wanted to keep the business in the family. So he asked me if I would go into business with him. And I was totally shocked.
You didn't see this coming?
I did not see it coming. I had no idea. I had my life planned out, like the railroad track. I knew exactly what I was going to do, and it wasn't a car business.
That's not exactly how he asked you.
Well, I can't say that in mixed company. But, no, what he said, I'm kidding. What he said was, come to work for me for 2 years. You're a young guy, come to work for me for 2 years, and it's kind of a test drive, And if that doesn't work out, you can always go back and practice law. In the meantime, I've taught you a little bit about the real world and about business, and, you'd be all the better for it. And I thought about that, and I said, well, that sounds like a reasonable proposition. Not to mention that I'd be making a little bit more money than going in as a junior associate at a law firm. And that was 1979, and I've never really looked back.
He also said, if nothing else, for 2 years he got a lawyer off the street.
Yeah, for 2 years, yeah. He didn't care much for lawyers.
They've heard a lot out here. I think we can be as colorful as we want, right?
You
Yeah.
sure can.
Y'all want to hear the real stories, right?
Yep,
Well, I'm
that's
trying to
right.
Okay.
be polite, but go ahead, son.
No, that's it. Maybe the financial statement plopped on the table.
Oh,
and
yeah,
how
well,
long-
that had a lot to do with it. Now, Tommy was a salesman
Yes.
through and through. And I was working for the federal government at the time. I was, from my perspective, just coming out of law school, I was doing pretty well. And, Tommy said, we had dinner. He said, well, don't give me a final answer right now, but I just want you to come over to the hotel room before you go back home. I want to show you something. And so we sat down at the table there, and he pulled out a financial statement. It was October. And he said, you can read one of these things, can't you? I said, yes, sir. I learned that in law school. And he pointed down at the net profit for the year. And he said, how long would you have to work as a junior associate in a law firm to make that kind of money? And I said, well, a long time. And, that obviously played a big part in it, but the opportunities that were available. And then thinking about, instead of going and working in a law firm for somebody else, I could go to a business that I might own one day. Now, it's possible in a law firm you become a senior partner and all that, but to be in a position to have one day your own business and learn a lot about how business works, that was a compelling argument.
I can imagine. Now, didn't you get thrown into a big project right out of the gate with the new location that you guys had?
Yes, well, 79 to 85, we had a 20-year lease. So Tommy came here in 65. We had a lease that would expire in 85.
Okay.
And Tommy really wanted to stay where we were on 15th Street. And he was negotiating with the landlord. It was a widow of the dealer who'd been killed. And in preparation for that, and this is another theme we'll hit on during the conversation, was that he wanted to have another plan B, for a couple of reasons. First of all, he wanted to have leverage with his landlord. So how do you do that? You got to have some place to go, right?
Right.
So he found this piece of property on 23rd Street, which was a wooded area.
It's
part of the
prime
farm.
now, but not back then, right?
Yeah, and I think at the time, even 23rd Street was just a little better than a dirt road. And
Does everybody know where our dealership is right now? Bill Cramer, GM. Can you imagine 23rd Street being a dirt road?
It's hard to
Yeah.
fathom that, isn't it?
It wasn't that long ago.
no, 1973 is when he bought that property. But he knew his lease was going to expire in 85. But he had the foresight.
He was planning B, yeah.
Plan B, he had the foresight to buy that property, hoping he was never going to have to use it for a dealership. That was going to be the leverage. In other words, tell the landlord, look, if you don't get right on the lease, I just move.
He did put up a sign, though, that said, future home of Tommy Thomas Chevrolet.
Yeah.
So that she knew where she stood.
Exactly. And we weren't able to get together with the landlord. So about 1980, end of 82, we knew we were going to move. And so we had to hire an architect and get a plan put together. And, Tommy was a Marine, a Marine's Marine. And he had gone through the Marine Corps program in San Diego. And the facility there, had a tile roof, stucco columns, and that's what he wanted the dealership to look like. And so we came back and he told the architect what he wanted. And of course, as architects do, they're going to build a statement. They're going to make a statement. And so it was really nice red tile roof, stucco, covered the whole 12 acres. And we put it out for bid. We got a bid, and it was way too high. I mean, way too high. And Tommy said, I'm not doing that. Bill, I want you and the architect to go figure out how to cut this down about half. So I spent...
You ever heard that, Brian?
Well, yeah, no kidding.
What's
Just
that?
cut it in half, right?
Yeah, just
But you don't want any
same
less square
stuff.
footage, right?
Right, right, exactly. So I spent the next 3 or 4 months working with the architect, going to Detroit and working with General Motors, in terms of how can we pare this dealership down and still have an operation that, is adequate for meeting our obligation to the public. And I came back and it was a little like matchbox looking building, just flat roof, rectangular. And we went back, sat down and said, well, we cut it in half. And Tommy looked at it and he says, well, I don't like that. And I said, well, that's what we're going to get for what you want to pay. And he said, I made my money in the Chevrolet business. I'm going to spend it in the Chevrolet business. And we turned around and went right back to the plan that was twice as much as he wanted to pay in the first place. And then he said, now we got that settled. Bill, I want you to build it. And I'll check on you every once in a while. I'll tell you where you mess up. And so
That's a massive structure, too, by the way. Yeah.
So for the next 2 years, I spent a lot of my time, on that site in the construction process.
Okay, so that would have taken us into, you said 85? 85?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was going on in kind of the car world during that time? Was it still just Tommy
William and I
Thomas?
were born.
What's that?
William and I were born.
That you guys were
Yes, we
born.
put
What
those
years were you
landmarks
guys
in.
born?
82.
82 and
83.
83. Okay. So then, so you had some young guys to bring into the fold, right?
Right. I'll get to them in a minute.
There's a lot that happens.
I mean,
before you guys. Hold
automotive.
on.
It made headline automotive news when William and I were born.
Yeah,
You know,
that's right.
The
Yeah.
next generation.
Yeah, front page. One of the things that Tommy insisted on, and I insisted on with Will and Chris, when I first came to work, the first day on the job, I was going to work in every single department of the dealership. And that doesn't mean just go there and watch what everybody else is doing. It means you're going to go be a service writer in the service lane. In other words, you're going to write the tickets, you're going to learn the business firsthand. And you go from there to the parts department, you go to the sales department, you go to the finance department, you go to the business department, then you go to sales management. You got to sit in every chair and learn it firsthand.
Let's go into that just a little bit further. What did you learn about the customer's experience by having to go to all those different roles? Like seeing it from their eyes, and how did that help you with understanding customer service?
Well, it was a very valuable experience because, believe it or not everybody that comes in to get their car fixed is upset. I mean, some people come in for maintenance.
Most, but not everybody.
Yeah. Well, some people come in, they're not happy with what happened to their automobile. And we understand that completely. And we're not perfect. We make mistakes. We live up to our mistakes. But a lot of people are there to get their car maintained, or they got a problem and they understand. And our job is to try to make the experience as painless as possible.
Yep.
And actually, you have to listen to the customer. We have the program they call the moniker is the 3 C's. And I'm not talking about Chris, CCC. You have the customer's complaint. You write that down. And then the technician, when they get it, you got to be explicit, saying here's what the customer's saying is happening to their automobile. It's
That noise that won't replicate
exactly.
when you see it, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you can hold your phone to the engine. It's that noise.
Yeah, not back then. We didn't have cell phones. We just had landlines, we call them, But you try to that was key. You had to understand what the customer's complaint was. Because if you didn't get that right, then the technician, he's trying to figure out what was really wrong with the car. The complaint, the technician takes the vehicle, looks at it, diagnoses it, this is what it's going to take to fix a complaint, come back to the service advisor, which is me or one of the others, and it says, here's what we got to do, and here's what we think it's going to cost. That the service advisor had to figure that out. And then you call the customer and say, you know, Mr. Customer, here's what's wrong, and here's what it's going to cost, and you get to go ahead or you don't. And then the final C is correction. What did you do to correct it? And that's what the technician would put on the repair order. Here's exactly what I did. And then it was your job as a service advisor to go back and check and make sure that the work that was done did correct the problem. Because you were the one who wrote the problem up in the first place, and you should have done your due diligence in finding out exactly what the customer's concern was and making sure it wasn't happening. So that's the theory of how that works. But you had to be there to do it, to understand it.
Was there a particular department that you gravitated towards the most and you just found it most at home at?
Well, I really enjoyed the finance department.
Yeah.
And of course, that was mathematics. But it was where you put the whole deal together. You had to, if you sold a car, in most cases, you had to get it financed with a bank or another financing institution. So you had to structure the deal in a way where, you know, you had enough equity in the deal that the bank would think it was a good risk, and the customer's credit, of course, have to be considered, and then you have to negotiate a payment and that kind of thing.
And one other thing that one of his hobbies he hadn't talked about is Dad got in on the ground floor with computers to the point of staying up late at night at University of North Carolina running punch cards in the basement of the math hall.
This
But
is true.
With the finance department, he created the first, I mean, nobody was doing it. He made a computer program to print out a lease contract or to figure a retail contract. So that rather than handwriting the whole contract, he could just figure the payment, print it out. I mean, he showed computer systems who came in, they're like, oh, you can't do that. He was like, well, I'm doing it right now. So he enjoyed that.
Embracing technology and
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a guy was on the very cutting first edge, I think, of the computer-aided education. I took a calculus course, and it was computer-aided calculus. And the professor was writing the book. And we had a computer in the basement of the math building, an IBM 360. And the room was probably, that held the computer was probably twice this size.
wow.
And you wrote your computer program on cards. Each card was a line of code. And then you stacked them up, and you take them and hand them over to the operator, and you're in line with 10 other people. And then they put it in a queue, and eventually it runs your program, and then you get your report back, and your program bombed on the first card. Then you got to fix that, and you go back and run it again. Maybe it's the fifth card it bombed. So it was not interactive.
High tech for the time, right?
Yes.
But it seems like it would be difficult to want to embrace something that seemed like, are we ever going to get this thing off the ground? How are we going to make it? How are we going to make it make us more efficient? Could you see that there was an end in sight? Is that why you were interested in it?
Well, we had a computer, one of the very first computers in the automobile business, which actually did all the paperwork, the contract, figured all the payments, all that. But it was very rudimentary. And when it broke down, you're out of business. And since they had a monopoly, it would cost you a fortune to get it fixed. And generally what it needed was a $5 part. Of course, if it's a monopoly, they can charge you whatever they want. So it's $500 for a $500 part, and I have $60 an hour to drive over from Mobile to fix it. Yeah. And I said, well, this is not ideal. And that was just about the time they came out with the first IBM PC. And I remember going to Tallahassee and buying it, and coming back and starting programming it, to do that function that this other machine was doing. Fortunately, it was written in a language that I was familiar with, BASIC, and I could, I wrote it in a different language, but I could use the template.
Yeah. And now we are at a place in time where you can tell AI to create an app for you
Correct.
with just using language now. Isn't that crazy how far we've come?
Yeah, and it's going to come. We're going to go a lot further really quickly.
So let's go ahead real quick, and then we're gonna come back. But what are some of that was the exciting piece of technology then, right? What's exciting you now in technology?
Well, it's AI.
It is AI. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, you don't. AI will write the program for you. You got to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But instead of me having to spend months writing a Pascal computer program for this IBM PC, the AI, Codex or ChatGPT, which is Codex for programming, or Anthropic, Claude Code. You give them instruction, it'll write the code.
Yeah. Are you guys using that internally in your business now?
I'll let Will.
That's
and
how
Chris
I
talk
respond to their emails.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's faster, right? Are
I'm
you
ju-
doing?
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. You should be.
Yeah.
If you're not, you should be, right? But how else are you using it?
It does speed up a lot of things. We do actually have an AI chatbot after hours that answers customer, requests on the website when they don't have a hallucination and change their name and their job, which has happened. But
Right.
yeah, we use it. I mean, it helps things as easy as writing a business plan. You kind of put in the parameters. It gives you it saves a lot of time
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, we may have 1,000 leads that come in a month, and that snowballs. And if you're a sales representative and you're responsible for your number of leads, again, that snowballs month in and month out. Not everybody buys in 1 month, so the follow-up process can really get lost, and it just gets to be too much work. So we use a tool that gets a lot of information from our website, whether it be a simple question like how much is the towing capacity, what colors does it come in, those kind of things that you would like an answer back if you're trying to buy a car, you're interested in the car, and maybe it slips through the cracks with a human that can't quite get to it, but we have a tool that does it instantaneously.
That's fantastic. In 24 hours a day, right?
24 hours a day, never
Yeah.
sleeps.
That's great. That's great. Okay, well, we'll go back to kind of where we were. So you're growing the business. You brought technology in. At what point did you bring on additional car dealers
Well,
or programs? Sorry.
well, we had an in-house finance company
Okay.
where we actually provided the money to finance used cars, and I wrote the program to administer all those loans.
That would have been a huge change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that kind of carries into what I want to talk about in the business cycle, because I got this great financial statement that was put out in front of me in 1979 or 78, and I go to work in 79, and the bottom falls out of the automobile business.
What was going on in the world?
Jimmy Carter.
Okay.
Jimmy Carter. Yeah, we had, I believe this, 21% interest and 11% inflation
And fuel shortage.
No gas.
and no gas.
Lines at the
I
gas
remember
pump.
seeing pictures, right, of that. I don't remember. I was young at that time, but it'd be hard to imagine lines to go get gas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, what's the interest on a new car these days? What, 5% or so?
Yeah.
5%, and
It
you were
can't
at
be
you were
any
at
more
20,
than 16.78 now.
21%. What'd you say?
The state max is 16.78 now.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're
Well, that
single digit.
yeah, there are different caps, for customer rates. The law dictates the most that can be. But from our perspective, one of the things we borrow a lot of money to finance our new vehicles.
Right.
In other words, it's called floor plan. So instead of paying for that vehicle, we'll finance it with a bank or with General Motors, and then when we sell the car, we pay it off. So when that car gets sold, the loan that we have on that car gets paid off, and we have to pay interest on that loan. So back in 1980 and 81, and this is relatively, cars say it's $10,000, and it's 21% interest we're paying on that $10,000. It just rounded off, say it's 24%, it'd be 2% a month. So if you had a $10,000 car sitting on your lot, you'd pay $200 a month just
to have
for
it
it
sitting
sitting there. And a lot of dealers went out of business because they didn't have the cash. You got to pay interest with cash. They won't take parts or anything else you got. You got to have the money. And we had a lot of automobile dealers went out of business because they couldn't pay their floor plan interest. And then what would happen is that the financing institution would repossess the vehicles and then have to dispose of them.
And so how were you guys able to stay in business?
Well, there was a benefit to being on 15th Street, and that was our rent was $4,000 a month. And we were able to hunker down.
Yeah, tighten up.
Tighten up. And actually, we only had 5 people in the sales department. And that was myself. I was a sales manager. And we had a truck manager and 2 salesmen. And that was it. So we were able to pare down our personnel count to survive. But we're not in a position to do that now because we've got this much larger operation. But we try to prepare for the worst. Yeah. And that's been a successful plan over the years.
Yeah.
Making sure you're prepared for what might come.
Yeah. Yeah. In good times, we need to be preparing
Absolutely.
for when times are gonna dip. Right? They're not always. It's not always up and to the right.
Yeah, I've been through at least 6 recessions. The worst of which was the 2007 and 8 Great Recession.
Yeah. Familiar with it, very actually.
Yes.
I'm a home builder, right?
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
exactly. But if you're in business, you have to have reserves.
Yeah.
You can't spend all your money.
That's right.
You can't get over leveraged. So it's been my philosophy to always have adequate cash reserves.
Yeah.
Maybe a little more than adequate.
Right. Well, in the personal life, we talk about having a emergency fund, right?
Exactly.
To be able to weather those storms, and if you got laid off or something happened, then you can continue to put food on your table.
But
So it's the same principle, huh?
not only that, though, but those are the opportunities where you can get good buys.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we picked up the other franchises is for cheap.
Okay.
Because, and you can tell that story, Dad.
You want to share about that, picking up the other franchises?
Yeah. As I said earlier, Tommy, when he came to town in '65, he was a Chevrolet dealer.
Yes.
And we had been trying to get some other franchises in town when I came back to town. But General Motors really didn't want to pair anything up with Chevrolet. They liked the competition. The dealers find it out. And so never could get rid. The one I wanted was Cadillac. And they would allow you to do that because Cadillac and Chevrolet, there's not a lot of overlap there. But I never could get together with a Cadillac dealer. And the dealer at the time in '08 was one of these publicly traded companies, Sonic Automotive. And they had Cadillac, GMC, Pontiac at the time, Nissan, and Buick. And
Here in town,
Here in town.
they had
Here in town.
Okay.
Lloyd. It's called Lloyd.
it was
Oh yeah, I
Lloyd's.
remember that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And so they were struggling. This big corporation, they're losing money all over the place, and they were trying to get rid of some of their dealerships that they were in their smaller markets. So they came knocking at my door and said, we really need to sell these dealerships, and we think you might be a good candidate to buy them. And I said, well, I'm having a few issues myself, because of the economy. But yeah, I'd be looking at it for the right price. And as it turned out, I got to a price that I thought was a good price. But the problem was, it wasn't a problem for us because of what I said about trying to have a nest egg prepared. You had to pay cash for it. Nobody was lending an automobile dealer any money.
And what year would this have been?
2009.
9. Okay.
Yeah, this in 2008.
It seems like so long ago now. It really does. Yeah.
2008, in December, the government was trying to figure out what to do about General Motors and Chrysler.
Yeah.
And because they were both going out of business. Yep. And the Congress was debating it, and I remember vividly the Senate was debating, whether to bail General Motors and Chrysler out. And it went back and forth and back and forth. About 1 o'clock in the morning, they decided they weren't going to do it. So at that point in time, I figured I might have to go back and practice law after all.
Yeah.
This is,
Well, hey, there's your plan B right there, right?
Yeah, exactly. But the next morning, George Bush, the administration lent General Motors $14 billion. Yeah. So, but we didn't know what was going to actually happen with General Motors. Was it going to continue, or was it going to go bankrupt, or what was going to happen? And so it was in that period of time between December and I believe it was April that I had the opportunity to buy these other franchises because they didn't know either what was going to happen with General Motors, and they just wanted out. So I took a gamble. In other words, I can spend this cash that I'm set aside and get these other franchises, or I can pass. Mm-hmm. And the trick was that they wanted me to buy all those franchises and also take on the lease at that location. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I said, I will buy the General Motors franchises. I don't want the Nissan franchise and the rent to go with it.
Yeah.
So I was able to buy the General Motors franchises and move them into our existing facility. We had no additional overhead except for what we had to pay to carry the vehicles. Had a large enough facility to accommodate it. So I was able to buy it at a distressed price and not increase my risk any more than it already existed. And what happened was overnight we doubled our service and parts business because now everybody that had a General Motors vehicle had to come to us.
Coming to you guys, yeah, exactly.
And that's really what helped us, in addition to having the reserves, it helped us survive and even thrive during that period of time because we had enough parts and service and body shop business to sustain us.
Were your sons part of the business at the time yet?
Yes.
You guys were in that, okay.
Mm-hmm.
What was your role then?
At that point, I'd taken the job I'm in now with as chief financial officer.
CFO, okay.
Yeah, and Chris, you were doing sales
I
management.
was running the truck department.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll never forget the first Cadillac Escalade that we brought over. And we'd been selling Chevrolets and GMCs, and there it was at the time, $75,000. It's like, how are we going to sell a $75,000 car? That's
In Panama
expensive.
City.
Yeah.
In Panama City, it's expensive. Now they're $175,000.
Oh my goodness.
You can get one for 115, 120, but you can spend 175 on one.
What about today, right now, today?
Today, right now, 174.
All right, right.
Yeah.
We'll cut you a deal.
Depends
All right.
on what it, yeah.
We brought a few out there.
Brian,
so,
we'll
yeah.
stretch you out as far as you need to go on a payment.
And less than 16% interest.
Nice,
Yes.
very good, very good. Okay, so you brought in the additional franchises. What were some of the hurdles with? I would imagine there was the culture a little different in the different under the. I know they're all under GM or General Motors umbrella, but just the culture of the different entities. Or were there any differences there?
I wouldn't say there was a great difference there. There's a different market, obviously for Cadillac, say, than maybe for Chevrolet, but there's a lot of overlap too. Somebody will have a Chevrolet truck and they drive a Cadillac. So it wasn't a difficult transition to make.
Yeah.
Unless y'all thought otherwise.
I mean, the requirements from General Motors were a little different in terms of the kind of facility they wanted us to have. Which, I mean, for us, everybody got a nicer facility
Yeah.
for that. We don't really differentiate between which brand gets, sorry, this is the Cadillac lane or whatever.
Well, they have an image program, and it changes every so often. But I mean, if you go out and you go to a fast food restaurant or a chain restaurant, you notice sometimes that they change the way they look. They're not the way they looked 10 years ago. They update it. And as a franchise dealer, we have to uphold their brand standards, and periodically we need to update our facility. And Cadillac has the way they want a dealership to look. GMC has a way they want it to look. Chevrolet has a way they want it to look. But since we're all of them together, it's called a multi-line. So we've got to make it kind of work for everybody. But around that same time was when they came out with the EBE program, the Essential Brand Elements, where we did a huge facelift on the store and brought in the blue arch out front, brought in the metal, the ACM, really changed the look. And we're able to keep the red tile roof, but it didn't look the same and hasn't ever since. But that was all. And the factory got down to the color and width of the grout and the tile.
Yeah.
And
Care about all of those
care
things,
about
right?
all that. Anything that's a customer touch point, back office kind of stuff. They don't necessarily
Unless it had a window. Yeah.
get too into the weeds. But yeah, we've got to. We're a private business. We are our own business. We're our own corporation. But we're a representative of a factory, representative of a manufacturer. So we have to work with them in a partnership. Sometimes that partnership can be tenuous. Sometimes it's smooth sailing. But I go to the different brand meetings, and there is a big difference between a meeting with the Cadillac representatives. There's fewer dealers. It's a different leadership group compared to the GMC and compared to the Chevrolet. It's a different environment.
Let me ask you this. Being part of a franchised system, can you talk to just, we have students here that, they may want to go into having their own business one day, and maybe there's an opportunity to buy a franchise or start something from scratch. Now, I know starting from something from scratch in the automotive industry is not really something you would do, but talk a little bit about some of the pros and cons of being part of a franchise network, some of the things that you guys have experienced.
Well, I would say it can be a blessing. It can also be a curse. We're blessed with the backing of a company that's been in business for over 100 years and has a great reputation, has built great product, and has a following. We celebrated our 60th, and we invited a number of folks in the area that we knew that had classic cars. And you see that our brand that we represent is a part of generations of families that remember a particular car, growing up riding a station wagon or a pickup truck their dad had. That's a blessing to represent the brand in that way. It can also be a little bit of a curse if there's something going wrong with the brand, like what Dad described in the 2007, 2008, or if there's a product issue, or if there's a marketing issue. I know a number of brands recently have gone through that, but you've got you ride the wave either way. Hopefully, it's not an undertow, but it really is a partnership with a massive corporation, and we're all after the same goal. We want to take care of our customers and sell as many cars as we possibly can.
Yeah, it's unique in that, I mean, like Chris said, you're representing them, and depending on what industry you're in is how strong that relationship or how easily that relationship can come and go. I mean, something he and I have learned, we started Cramer Marine and Outdoor about 4 years ago, and we're Yamaha franchised motors dealers. And with Chevrolet, with GM, as long as Dad's in charge and we have it, they can't really take it from us unless we do something illegal. With something like that, they can walk in the door and say you're no longer a Yamaha dealer.
Really?
if they want to. So every industry is a little different. I mean, Chick-fil-A has their own franchise.
Yeah.
McDonald's has their own franchise agreements. So the strength of those agreements is important, but it's different by the industry.
Well, Dad, you can touch on how tight it got in that 08, 09 time frame when you talk about whether you still have a dealer agreement with your manufacturer or not. That was
They were sending out
delivered in a FedEx envelope, and the document stated whether you were going to keep your franchise or not.
What a letter to open, right?
Yeah, you
Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, General Motors was trying to reduce its footprint as much as possible because it cost money to support dealerships. And they were looking at the dealerships across the country that they thought, either weren't going to make it or weren't in a position to really help General Motors as much as they needed. And, you had a list, and if you were on it, you were no longer a franchise dealer.
Yeah, they had old GM was one that
Yeah.
went bankrupt, and then they formed a new company,
Yeah.
a new General Motors, and either you went with the new company or you stayed with the old bankrupt company. If you stayed with the old bankrupt company,
You
that
weren't getting
was
any
the-
more cars?
You don't
You're
have a
done.
franchise anymore.
And there were dealers that had just built brand new facilities.
Oh my goodness.
You think of the Saturn brand.
Oh yeah.
There was one going up here.
Yep.
That never had one Saturn ever on the lot. Massive Hummer dealerships that when the brand went away, so did the dealership.
About the same time, Chris and I were going up to Washington, D.C. to do the National Automobile Dealers Association Dealer School. And we were in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. And on the way to class, we drove past a 3/4 built, huge Hummer facility with a track out back to do, test drives and stuff. And they never had the first Hummer on their
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Well,
That's the risk on the
I'm
private
glad. Yeah, I'm
business
glad you
owner.
weren't on the other side of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did gloss over this a little bit. I would like to let's take a little deeper dive into bringing your boys into the business, because I know that we have students here that their families own businesses, and they may decide to follow in their parents' footsteps, or maybe go do something else. So, what did that look like for you guys?
Well, that's one of the great blessings of having a family business is that you can have the family in the business. And, of course, I was a son-in-law. I was brought in. And Will and Chris, had their own choices to make. I didn't try to push them one direction or the other. And fortunately, they made a choice to stay and work at the dealership, and one day they'll take over the reins of the dealership. And of course, they went through all the same steps I did, through all the
Working in the
departments.
different
Yeah,
departments.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And then is that how you guys ended up? You end up as CFO, and you end up as what is your title, Chris?
COO.
COO. Yeah, COO. So would you talk a little bit about what that was like for you guys coming in, please?
Yeah, Chris went more along that pattern. I got a little sidetracked. I was working my way through that. I'd been through the service department, parts department. I think I spent 2 days in the body shop, and thought that was enough. Was working in the finance department, but we had a long-term employee who was our comptroller, CFO at the time, who we found out was stealing money from us.
Oh no. For how long?
I think we looked back about 5 years, and that's when our CPA said that's where we're going to stop, but probably for longer than that. There were some situations that allowed her to take money without it being noticed. That was an agreement we had with a line of credit with a bank that they recorded some deposits to us or they didn't record some deposits they made to us, and they were coming around to we weren't the only ones.
Yeah.
They were coming around to different dealers and saying, hey, our books have been wrong. We gave you this money. We want to talk about the interest on it. And she fled town in the meantime, and they came and met with Dad and our general manager at the time, and they're like, oh, yeah, we don't have this money. So she ended up going to prison, but in the meantime, I helped kind of solving the problem and figuring out what happened, and actually learned that I enjoy accounting. I have a degree in ancient history. So
Ancient
this
history.
was not,
Okay. All right.
This was not, in my wheelhouse at the time, but you know, we had one other comptroller come in, and she didn't last very long, and then I got the job after that. But I'll tell you, one thing that I've talked about and other things, the beautiful thing about having something like Gulf Coast or Florida State here in town, I liked what I was doing. I enjoyed it, but I didn't really know what I was doing. So I could come at night and take accounting classes at Gulf Coast. I'd talk to the people over here about doing more, but in the meantime, I had kids and no spare time or energy. So something I'd like to get back to, but I was able to get the training here to go into that job.
Yeah.
And I've just been kind of there ever since.
He did really well, too.
Yeah, I would imagine. And, you know, and also being able to look at your dad, who got a law degree, right, and now is a dealer, and you said, well, I got my degree in ancient history. I can be a CFO.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Chris? What was your path look like?
I learned that I wanted to be in sales of some kind when I was a few years younger than everybody in this crowd. I was probably 14 or 15, and I was mowing lawns with a friend who had a lawn care business, and he would pay me minimum wage, which I think at the time was $4.50 or $5 an hour, which I had all the money spent before I ever got a check. But we go to mow, and I kind of, worked for him for a week or so and kind of just ho-hum, helped him out. And we go to a guy's house, actually it was right over here, and the customer wanted this elaborate irrigation system. He wanted, like, there's a hole, an irrigation head like every 3 feet in his yard. It was crazy. It was like 50.
No dry spots.
None. It was insane. But he said, well, Chris, we need to do this irrigation job here, and I flagged off where we need the holes. So I'm going to come back in and install the sprinkler heads. And he said, I'm going to leave you here, and I'm going to pay you $5 a hole to dig these holes. And I said, $5 a hole. He came back by lunch. I had them all dug. And I learned right then that I was motivated way more by the opportunity to do more, to earn more by working smarter and working harder. And that is a commission. And anybody had a job in here? Paid by the hour? So, you've got an hourly wage and you're going to work 40 hours a week. Let's say just round numbers is $12 an hour. It's $480 a week. That's how many you can make unless you have overtime or unless you do a great job and your boss gives you a raise. But in sales, there is no limit to what you can make. You do not go to your boss to get a raise. You go find more customers, and your customers give you a raise. And I learned early on that that's what I wanted to do, that I was highly motivated by commission. But my first job at the dealership, I was not long after that. I decided I wanted to go help out and sell cars and be around Corvettes and trucks. And, okay, that's going to be exciting. And I got some time after high school. I can go help out and do that. And then the summer comes around, and I go to Dad, and I said, I'd like to come work at the dealership. And he said, sure thing. And Mom took me up there on a Monday morning and turned me over to Dad, and I thought that's where I was going to go, was right to the showroom floor, and he keeps walking right past the showroom. Walks me over to the service department, takes me to Billy Don, who was running the service department at the time, and turns me over to Billy, and Billy walks me out into the shop, hands me a broom. So I swept the shop floors, helped out clean all the oil that was spilled, and eventually worked my way up to where I could detail a car. And so I detailed cars. We learned a lot working with the guys back there doing that, and that's how it started. And then worked through the process that Dad described of being a service advisor. And I really enjoyed, while over in the service department, we got into accessories. Everybody knows about, obviously, wheels and tires, and back then they didn't. The factory didn't have bed liners and they didn't have bed liners. They didn't have spray-in bed liners and things like that, but they do now. So we sold all that stuff after the fact, and I loved it. I loved the sales aspect of it. But that went on for a couple years out of college, and I talked with the general manager at the time, and I was making, I think, Dad, you were paying me $30,000 a year out of college, which was pretty darn good. And I talked to him, and I said, I'd really like to come over and, start in sales. What do you think? He goes, yeah, I think that'd be great. And I said, how much do you think I could make selling cars? He said, well, twice what you're doing now. I was like, sign me up. Let's go. Let's start now. And so that's really, I took off. I loved every minute of selling, and I immersed myself even when I was in high school in some sales training, and I learned quite a bit of just the mentality of it. I learned some word tracks that it wasn't snake oil that I was selling that really felt right, that was things that I believed in, but it was a better way to communicate. I've learned over the years to be more agreeable because when you have to be agreeable in order to get an agreement, and if you're trying to be right, that doesn't necessarily get you to the end result. You may know in your mind of minds, your heart of hearts, that the information you have is correct and the person that is telling you different is not, but you're never going to get to any kind of agreement if you're trying to be right. Anybody seen the blue dress and the gold dress? And you know that, it's just really a matter of your eye and some people and how they see things. And if you tell somebody that has that particular pigmentation or whatever it is that causes it, if they see a blue dress and you see a gold dress and they say, no, it's blue, and you say, look, it's gold, you're never going to come to agreement there because you see blue and they see gold. But that's their reality. Sales is about acknowledging that could be their reality and coming to some sort of agreement and then taking care of folks.
Yeah, I got to tell you about his first paycheck, though, when he went out and started sweeping. He came bounding in my office saying, Dad, they've got my check all wrong. There's something really bad wrong with this check.
I told you I'd already spent all of it.
Yeah.
I had mirror lures, hatchets. I mean, it was.
Yeah, and I said, what are you talking about? I looked at it, said, looks fine to me. He says, yeah, but what is this FICA stuff and withholding? And I didn't tell them they could do that. I said, well, son, they don't have to ask. That's.
I became a Republican that day.
That's right. Yeah, that's the way it works.
And did you know that your dad was paying the other side of that, right?
No, I didn't know. I just knew they took it out.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so I'm paying attention to our time, and there's a few things I definitely want to get to. Is one, I want to talk to about how do you uphold the quality and level of people that you hire, because you have a lot of employees now, right? How many employees you have?
118.
118 employees who are representing Bill Cramer. Okay, so how do you hire well? And then the next question, I'm just going to tell you where I'm leading, is you. When I started out, I said you guys are pillars in the community, and you really are. And I just would like you to be able to talk a little bit about why pouring back into the community that you do business in has become so important to you. Okay, so those are the.
Well, we've always had the philosophy, and this is something that Tommy had as well. Is if you take care of your employees, they'll take care of your customers. If you have an unhappy employee, the customer's going to sense that. Yeah. It's a lot of, and Chris can tell you, and Will, but particularly in sales, if you don't have enthusiasm for what you're selling, the customer can sense that. But we have 401ks, we have life insurance on our employees. We try to pay fair to top end wages. And of course, as Chris says, if you're in sales, you write your own paycheck.
Right. There's no ceiling.
There's no ceiling. And we're blessed to have a lot of employees that have been with us for a very long time. And we have one now that's still with us after 52 years. And it's those employees that you keep, and particularly in sales. It's so important for a customer to come back to the same person that sold them the car the next time they want to buy one, or to refer one of their friends to that salesperson because they had a good experience. So it's in our best interest and not only, financially, but it's the right thing to do. We want people, we consider our employees to be part of our extended family. Because a lot of times we spend more time with them than we do with our family. But I'll let Will and Chris add.
Yeah, would you guys like to add to
Yeah,
that?
one thing we focus a lot on is being a team. When it's not me hiring somebody, it's not Chris hiring somebody. It's if you're going to be a service advisor, you interview with all the service advisors. If you're going to be in sales, you interview with all the sales managers. So we take input from everybody who they're going to be working with, not just, hey, we got this person, go to work. That makes a huge difference.
Show up.
What is it? 90% of life is showing up.
Show up. And when you go to speak with somebody about working for them, dress nice. You only get one chance to make a first impression. We've had folks show up in flip-flops. Folks show up in tattered clothing. You get one chance to do that. And a lot of the things that I key in on are more, it's less about what you're saying, and it's about how you're saying it. And I want to get to the root of what motivates you and why you want to do what you want to do. What does the dollar mean? Is a dollar just a paycheck? What does that mean? Does that mean that you're going to get to go out and find a place of your own to live? Does it mean that you're going to finally get the car, the reliable transportation that you want, or a particular car you wanted? Does it mean that you're helping a family member? What does that mean? Why are you working? What is your why? I try to find that in an interview, and it's hard to do. Folks come in there with their guard up, and you're gonna say what you need to say to get the job that you think you want. But it all comes out in the end. It all comes out fairly quickly as to your true colors, and then the place that you go work. But find a place that motivates you, and it has a lot of opportunity. And again, I can't say that I've been that there's really a foolproof way of doing it, but there's some real key indicators that I try to pay attention to. And we're not perfect, but we've got a great solid core of folks that have been with us for quite some time, and then we all together try to make the right decision on our hires.
I can tell you, I've been treated very well there. I mean, I've been a customer for many years, and I've always come away feeling like I was treated fairly, and where they've gone above and beyond. And you want that. You want that from your people. We have a handful of minutes left, and there's really two more things I want to talk about. So one is the involvement of the Cramer family in the community. Why is that important? And then what's next? I know you mentioned the Marine, right? And then also I know you guys have bought some more property. And is that plan B,
Well, as far as the community is concerned and what we do in it, Tommy had a phrase he used, which I think sums it up pretty well. It's called, we're paying our civic rent.
Paying our civic rent.
Our civic rent. In other words, we're successful because of the community that we live in. And we can't be successful unless our community is successful. And so we have an obligation to support our community, particularly in the ways that we think are most important. And there's so many worthy causes out there. You can't serve all of them. We try to serve a lot of them. But for me, one of the most significant things I felt I could do was serve in the capacity that helped education. And I want to be a teacher.
Right. Natural fit.
Yeah, and I actually did teach one course at Gulf Coast.
And then Chris and I got one of the teachers he taught as our teacher.
Yeah, I taught trigonometry on Wednesday nights from 6 to 9. So, you weren't there because you wanted to be. But I had an opportunity to serve on the Board of Trustees at Gulf Coast State College in 1987. And I thought, that'd be a great opportunity. My dad went to St. Pete Junior College back in the late 30s and early 40s. He graduated in 1941. That was the only two-year institution in the state. And he wouldn't have gotten his college education if he hadn't had the availability of that school and also a scholarship that he got from the Rotary Club. So I knew firsthand, through my father, what a difference $500 in an educational institution that was accessible and affordable. And of course, he was highly motivated. So that combination, he took off. But if the college hadn't been there, he'd never been able to go. And if he hadn't had the $500, he'd have never been able to go. And and here having FSU to go with Gulf Coast is a true blessing, a phenomenal relationship. But being able to provide, there's so many dimensions. As a trustee, you're in the governance of the institution. You make high-level policy decisions with the other trustees, and you hire and compensate the president. If necessary, you terminate the president. You do a lot of important things as a trustee to support the institution. But along with that, the college has a foundation, just like FSU has a foundation. And to me, growing that foundation and making it provide more opportunities for more people is one of the best things you can possibly do in a community. And I'm a little partial, Randy, don't take this personally, but I'm not going to say anything bad about FSU. I'm just going to say I think Gulf Coast is, and the state colleges in general, they're, to me, that's the pressure point for workforce development in the state of Florida. Not everybody needs a four-year degree. Some people do. But in these days and times, learning a skill and going out and working, there's nothing wrong with that. And you can get that kind of education at a state college. And of course, if you want to pursue a higher degree, that's wonderful too. And we have a great partnership with FSU, and FSU here does a fantastic job.
Absolutely.
I got a four-year degree,
Yes.
but being able to help that foundation grow and make more opportunities available, to me, that was what my passion was.
That was your passion. And how big was the foundation when you started?
We had $1.4 million, and it was 20 years old.
At 1.4 million, it was 20 years old, and when you were finished, how big was
Well,
it?
I'm not done yet,
You're not done?
but we do now have the endowment is right at $40 million.
40 million.
Yes, and we've spent $35 million in the meantime.
Wow. So 74 million.
70, yeah.
Yeah, 74. That's awesome. That is awesome.
That's not on mine. Not on my credit. No, it was a lot of people involved.
But to think about the people that have benefited, that were able to go to college because there was money available, and I could only imagine many of those students started over there.
Absolutely.
And came
We
right
have
across
a
the street.
great 2+2 program.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you one quick story.
Sure.
One of the most awesome days of my life was when Chris's middle son was being born. Now, Chris and Pam never wanted to know what the sex of the baby was. So they kept us all in suspense. So you're at the hospital and you're waiting.
Everybody was in suspense.
Yeah.
We were.
You too.
Yeah. We weren't keeping that from everybody.
So, we're in the waiting room and we're all waiting for the doctor, so the nurse to come out and say the baby's coming, And so that happens, and we're rushing past the nursing station to go back to put our ears up on the door, to hear what the doctor says. And one of the nurses says, "Mr. Cramer, can I speak to you a second?" And I said, "Ordinarily, yeah, but we're having a baby." She said, "Well, no, I just need a minute." She says, I want to thank you for that scholarship that I got in 1991, and I would not be a nurse today without it.
That's awesome.
So I got that, and then I got a grandson the same day.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Can't get
awesome.
much better than that.
It couldn't have been. Couldn't have been any better. That's fantastic. What about you, Will? With respect to what organizations are you interested in? And
Yeah, mine have focused more on the Chamber of Commerce, the Economic Development Association, Alliance, United Way, things like that. We believe that, you know, a rising tide lifts all ships. So, you know,
Absolutely.
we sell cars, but if we can go out there and help recruit aviation industry, if we can recruit healthcare professionals, if you can recruit FedEx or a transformer manufacturer to come to town, they bring jobs in. Those people buy cars, hopefully, hopefully from us. So we're fortunate to be able to spend time, to spend money, to do those things, to help do those kind of things, to bring those people to town, to provide opportunity, whether it's through education, whether it's through employment, that everybody can play a part. Everybody can be welcoming. Everybody can be encouraging. When people come to town, they notice, you know, whether a community embraces them or not.
Yeah.
That goes for the economy. That goes for the military. When they come down, hopefully, you know, our goal in a lot of those things is to get people to come back here when they retire.
They are in droves.
And they are. And,
Yeah.
and they're skilled. They bring spouses that are skilled. They bring families. And it's important that, you know, this is a place that they want to come back, the place that they want to be. And so, like I said, we're fortunate to be able to play a part in that. Not everybody has the time, the resources to do that. So it's fun because you get to know these people. You get to form relationships with them. I used to tell Dad when, you know, doing the chamber stuff, and he'd be like, "Why are you never at work?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm not hanging out with my friend." I kind of am at this point, but that's another part of the thing. It goes, you know, back generations in our family.
Yeah. Just making the community that you're in a better place to live too. Yeah. How about you, Chris? Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think when you look at how you can make the biggest difference, I look at my life and what's made the biggest difference to me, and that is mentorship, and that is learning from others and examples, and being a good father, my wife being a good mother, being a good friend, being a good uncle, being a good aunt, being a good cousin. I've been blessed.
You'll never be a good aunt. I'm sorry, son.
But I've been blessed with great mentors. Some didn't even know they were mentoring me when they were. And I saw an opportunity, maybe 2007, an organization came to town, Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I jumped at it, and I was on the board for a long time and helped grow the organization, helped grow the relationships, and then became a mentor, became a big brother myself. But I think that at the core of really making a difference and impacting people, it's the relationships that you have with them. And I'm blessed also, I get to coach my kids. I've got 3 boys, and I get to coach them and their friends, and even my boys help coach the other kids. But you never know. I've had coaches over the years that have said one little thing, or teachers over the years that have taken an interest in me when I didn't think they did, or one little thing can change everything for you, and it could come from the craziest place. So I look to that to maybe off chance that I could be that little difference for somebody.
I can assure you that you have been, and I'm also going to plant a seed too. Just we're working on a mentorship program here for students at FSU to connect them with people in our community that just need that an additional touch point for someone to help guide them along. So I'm glad to hear that's a passion of yours. I'll follow up with you later on it. We have just a couple minutes left, and I think what I would like to do is give you an opportunity to say anything about, you know, what's in the future. Where do you see Bill Cramer going? What's any additional plans that you guys would like to share?
Well, we did buy a piece of property on the beach.
Know about that?
You
Yes, sir.
mentioned earlier. You know, that was a strategic plan. We don't have a franchise to put on there yet, but it's you know, if you don't have the property in the right location, the chances of you getting a good franchises are diminished. If you get an opportunity to get a franchise, you don't have a place to put it, you know, you're done. So the idea was to try to find the ideal location and then see if we can negotiate a reasonable, a price for it, good terms. And we were able to accomplish that, and that's the growth area here. And we definitely want to have a presence out there. Right now, the question is, at what point are the manufacturers going to be looking to expand? And a lot of it has to do with demographics here, which are improving, day to day, and also the economy. There's some challenges with the automotive manufacturers, and they're not really looking to expand at this point. But we're actively pushing them.
It all goes back to being prepared,
Yeah.
when the opportunity arises. It's like Tommy buying the property in 1973 that didn't move on to until 85, or when he built the building. I mean, I actually have a copy of the letter from General Motors saying, this is too big. If you don't make money with it, we told you it was too big.
It's not our
But
fault,
then when we had the opportunity, the resources to pick up the additional franchises, all we had to do was change the signs. Yeah. We had plenty of space for them. So those kind of things, you plan and you're ready, and then one day they just happen. They come quickly, and you got to take advantage of them when they come.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope it doesn't take a recession to get a good deal on the next franchise, right? So I have a feeling just the right one's going to come along for you. Chris, anything you wanted to add?
Maybe touch on the marine side a little bit. William and I started Cramer Marine and Outdoor, really our first venture outside of some real estate redevelopment downtown. But that's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. Anybody like boating?
Oh, yeah.
I hope everybody raises their hand. Nothing puts a smile on your face like
being on the water.
Jamming the
right?
throttles and heading out on the water. But we fix boats.
Yeah.
We fix engines. We sell engines. And that's been a lot of fun. And we've grown it every year. So we look forward to taking care of more folks and any issues that they have with boats and doing more of that.
Awesome.
Yeah, our manager at that store says we sell smiles per hour.
Smiles per hour. Nice, nice. Well, Mr. Cramer and Will and Chris, I just want to say thank you for taking your time to share your story with us today. It was very, very engaging, and I really enjoyed it, getting to hear things that I did not know. And I want to say thank you for when I said about you being a pillar in our community. I meant it. I mean, when I think about there's a handful of people that have been pillars of our community over the years, and the Cramer name has been there. And I guess you were following the footsteps of Tommy Thomas too. So, but just want to say thank you. And so let's give them a round of applause for coming out today.
Well, I want to thank you and tell you what a great privilege it's been to be able to do this, and wish all of you luck as you move through your educational career and through life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you guys have a wonderful day. If you did get something to eat, looks like there's a couple sandwiches left, but you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you, North Bay Haven and Collegiate School, also for joining us today.
And if you need a car, I'll be outside. Just get with me.